We have created a culture of trauma tourists, people who collect their wounds like souvenirs and display them like badges of honor. Social media has turned personal pain into public performance, where the most damaged person gets the most attention and sympathy. Everyone wants to be special. And in a world where being special through achievement requires effort, being special through suffering requires only storytelling. You see it everywhere. People who define themselves by their diagnosis, who introduce themselves with their disorders, who build their entire identity around what happened to them, instead of what they're doing about it. This trauma tourism has created a competitive victimhood, where people fight to prove who has suffered more, who deserves more compassion, who has the right to be more broken. But here's what no one wants to hear. Your trauma is not your identity, your mental illness is not your personality, and your past is not your permanent address. The moment you stop touring your own pain and start building your own power, you realize that healing was always a choice you were afraid to make. There was a woman who sat in my office, tears streaming down her face, convinced that her childhood abuse had sentenced her to a lifetime of failed relationships. Dr. Jung, she said, I am broken beyond repair. My past has made me this way and I cannot escape it. I looked at her with compassion, but also with a firm knowledge that she was both completely wrong and absolutely right. Wrong about her powerlessness, right about the weight of her burden. That moment crystallized a truth I have spent decades understanding. We are not prisoners of our past, but we often choose to live as if we are. You see, the human mind has a peculiar tendency to confuse what happened to us with who we are. We take the events of our lives, especially the painful ones, and we build an identity around them like a fortress. But here is what I have learned from thousands of hours spent in the depths of the human psyche. That fortress is not protecting you, it is imprisoning you. The very thing you think defines you is actually preventing you from becoming who you truly are. Every single day you stand at the crossroads. On one path lies the familiar territory of your past with all its wounds, limitations, and learned helplessness. On the other path lies the unknown territory of your potential, where the person you could become waits patiently for you to choose them over the person you think you have always been. Most people choose the familiar path, not because it serves them, but because it requires no courage to walk it. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the recognition that something else is more important than your fear. And what could be more important than the full expression of your authentic self? What could be more valuable than the life you came here to live, rather than the life your circumstances tried to impose upon you? The prison of past events is real, but it is not made of iron bars. It is made of thoughts, beliefs, and patterns that we repeat so often they feel like natural laws. When something traumatic happens to us, especially in childhood, our minds create strategies to survive. These strategies often involve making ourselves smaller, building walls, or developing behaviors that once protected us but now limit us. The child who was abandoned learns not to trust. The child who was criticized learns not to try. The child who was hurt learns not to love openly. These survival strategies become our personality, our way of being in the world. We mistake them for our true nature, but they are nothing more than adapted responses to circumstances that no longer exist. The abandoned child grows up, but continues to push people away. The criticized child becomes an adult, but still holds back their gifts. The hurt child ages, but keeps their heart locked away. They carry their past like a heavy coat in summer, wondering why they feel so burdened. Here is what most people do not understand. Your unconscious mind is incredibly loyal. It will keep running the same programs, repeating the same patterns, protecting you from dangers that existed 20, 30, even 50 years ago. It does not know that you are no longer 5 years old and helpless. It does not realize that you now have resources, strength, and choices that you did not have then. Your unconscious mind is like a faithful guard dog that continues to bark at shadows long after the intruder has left. This is where the concept of psychological determinism becomes dangerous. If you believe that your past determines your future, then you have already surrendered your power. You have decided that you are nothing more than the sum of your experiences, a biological robot programmed by circumstances beyond your control. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. Yes, we are influenced by our past. Yes, we carry wounds and patterns that shape our behavior. But influence is not determinism. Shaping is not imprisonment. You are not a tree that must grow in whatever direction the wind has bent you. You are a conscious being with the power to choose your direction, regardless of which way the wind has blown. Within every human being lives what I call the shadow, the repository of all the parts of ourselves we have rejected, denied, or pushed into darkness. Your shadow contains not only your so-called negative traits, but also your unexpressed potential, your unlived life, your authentic power. When traumatic events happen, pieces of our true self often get split off and buried in the shadow. We learn to present only the parts of ourselves that seem safe, acceptable, or likely to get our needs met. But here is the paradox. The very experiences that wound us also contain the seeds of our greatest strength. The person who learns compassion through suffering develops a deeper empathy than one who has never known pain. The individual who overcomes abandonment often becomes exceptionally loyal and loving. The one who faces their fears develops courage that those who have never been tested cannot possess. Your shadow is not your enemy, it is the keeper of your disowned power. Every characteristic you have rejected about yourself, every emotion you have been afraid to feel, every dream you have been too scared to pursue lives in your shadow, waiting for you to reclaim it. The integration of your shadow is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming who you have always been beneath the layers of conditioning and protection. This is why confronting what we deny about ourselves is so crucial to transformation. When you refuse to look at your shadow, you remain at its mercy. You project your disowned qualities onto others, seeing in them what you cannot accept in yourself. You blame external circumstances for internal states. You give away your power to everyone and everything except the one place where it actually resides. Within your own conscious choice, the moment of awakening comes when consciousness meets choice. It is the instant when you realize that between every stimulus and response there exists a space. In that space lives your freedom. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, understood this profoundly when he wrote that everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances. But let me be clear about what choice means in this context. I am not talking about positive thinking or pretending that bad things did not happen. I am not suggesting that you can simply decide to feel better and make it so. True choice is deeper than that. It is the recognition that while you cannot control what happens to you, you can always control what you make it mean. The difference between reaction and response is the difference between slavery and freedom. When you react, you're operating from your conditioning, your past programming, your unconscious patterns. When you respond, you are operating from your awareness, your values, your conscious intention. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. This brings us to the concept of personal responsibility, which is perhaps the most misunderstood idea in psychology. Personal responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for what happened to you. It does not mean denying the reality of trauma or minimizing the impact of difficult circumstances. Personal responsibility means recognizing that regardless of what happened to you, you are now responsible for what you do with it. The word responsibility itself reveals its true meaning, responsibility, the ability to respond rather than react. When you claim your responsibility, you are not taking blame for your past, you are taking ownership of your future. You are declaring that while you may have been a victim of circumstances, this leads us to what I consider the central process of human development, individualization. Individualization is not about becoming different from everyone else or pursuing selfish interests. It is about becoming who you truly are, separate from the expectations of others, the limitations of your past, or the fears that have shaped your choices. The individualization process requires you to differentiate between your authentic self and the persona you have developed to navigate the world. Your persona is like a mask you wear in different situations. The face you present to get approval, avoid conflict, or meet social expectations. There is nothing wrong with having a persona, but problems arise when you mistake your persona for your true self. Your authentic self is who you are when no one is watching, when you're not trying to impress anyone or avoid anything. It is your natural way of being before the world taught you to be otherwise. The journey of individualization is the process of peeling away the layers of conditioning to rediscover this authentic self and then having the courage to live from that place. This process often requires what I call the hero's journey within your own psyche. Like the heroes of ancient myths, you must venture into the unknown territories of your own consciousness, face the dragons of your fears and limitations, and return with the treasure of your authentic power. This journey cannot be avoided if you want to live a truly fulfilling life. You can postpone it, but you cannot escape it. The hero's journey begins with a call to adventure, a recognition that your current way of being is no longer sufficient. Perhaps it is a crisis that forces you to question everything, or simply a growing sense that there must be more to life than what you are experiencing. This call often feels uncomfortable because it requires you to leave the familiar territory of your known self and venture into the uncertainty of who you might become. Along the way, you will encounter what I call archetypal energies, universal patterns of human experience that exist in the collective unconscious. The mother archetype teaches you about nurturing and care. The father archetype shows you about structure and discipline. The warrior teaches you about courage and boundaries. The lover opens your heart to passion and connection. These archetypes are not external forces, they are potentials within you, waiting to be activated and integrated. As you integrate these different aspects of yourself, you begin to see that your past experiences, even the difficult ones, were not random punishments, but necessary ingredients in the recipe of your becoming. The person who has never faced adversity lacks the strength that comes from overcoming challenges. The individual who has never experienced loss cannot fully appreciate what they have. The one who has never felt afraid cannot know the triumph of acting in spite of fear. This is the alchemy of transformation, turning the lead of your painful experiences into the gold of wisdom and strength. This does not mean being grateful for trauma or pretending that harmful things were actually good. It means recognizing that you have the power to transform any experience into something that serves your growth rather than limiting your potential. But transformation is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process of conscious choice making. Every day, in small and large ways, you choose whether to operate from your conditioning or your consciousness, whether to react from your wounds or respond from your wisdom, whether to remain who you have been. The practical steps of this transformation begin with awareness. You must become conscious of your patterns, your triggers, your automatic responses. This requires honest self-examination, often with the help of others who can see what you cannot see about yourself. It means paying attention to your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without immediately trying to change them. Once you develop awareness, you can begin to create space between your triggers and your responses. This space is where your power lives. In this space, you can ask yourself, is this reaction serving me? Is this behavior aligned with who I want to be? Is this choice moving me toward my authentic self or away from it? The next step is developing new neural pathways through intentional action. Your brain is remarkably plastic, capable of forming new connections and patterns throughout your entire life. But this requires repetition and consistency. You must practice new ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving until they become as automatic as your old patterns once were. This is where the creative unconscious becomes your ally rather than your opponent. Your unconscious mind is not just a repository of past programming. It is also the source of infinite creativity and wisdom. When you learn to work with your unconscious through practices like active imagination, dream work, and meditation, you gain access to resources and insights that your conscious mind alone cannot provide. Your dreams, for instance, are not random mental static, but meaningful communications from your unconscious. They often show you aspects of yourself you have not yet recognized, point towards solutions you have not yet considered, or reveal potentials you have not yet claimed. Learning to understand the symbolic language of your dreams is like gaining access to an inner advisor who knows you better than you know yourself. Active imagination is another powerful tool for transformation. This involves deliberately engaging with the images, symbols, and figures that arise from your unconscious mind, treating them as real and meaningful rather than dismissing them as mere fantasy. Through active imagination, you can dialogue with different aspects of yourself, explore unresolved conflicts, and access creative solutions to life's challenges. But perhaps most importantly, you must learn to trust the process of your own becoming. Transformation is not linear. It does not happen according to your timeline or your expectations. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, times when you feel like you are going backward rather than forward. This is normal and necessary. Growth happens in spirals, not straight lines. You will revisit the same themes and challenges at deeper levels, each time with greater wisdom and strength. The key is to maintain faith in your own capacity for change while being patient with the process. You are not trying to become someone else. You are trying to become more authentically yourself. This means accepting all parts of yourself, even the ones you wish were different, while still choosing to grow and evolve. As you continue this journey of transformation, you will notice that your relationship with your past begins to change. The events that once defined you become simply things that happened to you. The wounds that once controlled your behavior become sources of wisdom and compassion. The limitations you once accepted as permanent become challenges you have overcome. This shift in perspective is perhaps the most profound aspect of transformation. You begin to see your entire life story differently. Instead of being a victim of circumstances, you become the author of your own narrative. Instead of being controlled by your past, you use your past as raw material for creating your future. But remember, this transformation is not just for your own benefit. When you free yourself from the prison of your past, you give others permission to do the same. When you choose consciousness over conditioning, you model what is possible for every human being. When you transform your pain into wisdom, you become a beacon of hope for others who are still trapped in their own suffering. The ripple effects of your transformation extend far beyond your own life. Your children, if you have them, inherit a different legacy. Your relationships become more authentic and fulfilling. Your work becomes an expression of your true self, rather than a means of escape or survival. Your very presence in the world becomes a force for healing and growth. This is the ultimate paradox of personal transformation. The more authentic you become, the more you serve others. The more you heal yourself, the more you contribute to the healing of the world. The more you free yourself from the limitations of your past, the more you help free humanity from the collective patterns that keep us all trapped. Living the transformed life requires daily commitment to conscious choice. It means starting each day with recognition that you have the power to choose your thoughts, your attitudes, your responses, and your actions. It means taking responsibility for your inner state, regardless of your outer circumstances. It means treating every challenge as an opportunity for growth, and every setback as information for course correction. The transformed life is not a life without problems or pain. It is a life where problems and pain are met with consciousness rather than reactivity, with wisdom rather than fear, with choice rather than compulsion. It is a life where you are guided by your values rather than driven by your wounds, where you are pulled toward your potential rather than pushed around by your circumstances. Building resilience against old patterns requires constant vigilance, but not the exhausting kind of vigilance that comes from fighting yourself. It is the gentle but firm vigilance of a loving parent who guides a child away from danger while nurturing their growth. You must be both compassionate and strong with yourself, understanding where your patterns come from, while refusing to be controlled by them. The ongoing nature of transformation means that you will never be finished. There will always be new levels of awareness to achieve, new aspects of yourself to integrate, new challenges to meet with consciousness rather than conditioning. This is not a burden, but a gift. It means that no matter how old you get or how set in your ways you think you are, the possibility for growth and change remains alive within you. As transformed individuals, we have a responsibility to impact others positively. This does not mean preaching or trying to fix people who have not asked for help. It means living in such a way that others can see what is possible. It means offering our presence, our listening, our understanding to those who are ready to receive it. It means creating safe spaces where others can begin their own journey of transformation. The ripple effect of personal change is profound and far-reaching. When you transform yourself, you change the energy you bring to every interaction. You respond differently to conflict. You love more freely. You work more authentically. You live more courageously. Others feel this difference, even if they cannot articulate it. Some will be inspired to begin their own journey. Others will simply benefit from being in the presence of someone who has chosen consciousness over conditioning. Remember this. Every moment offers you a choice. In this very instant, you can choose to see yourself as a victim of your past or as the architect of your future. You can choose to remain trapped by what happened to you or to be liberated by what you choose to do with what happened to you. You can choose to live as less than you are or to step into the fullness of who you are meant to become. The path of transformation is not easy, but it is simple. It requires courage, commitment, and compassion for yourself. It demands that you face your fears, embrace your shadows, and trust in your capacity for growth. But the reward is nothing less than the full expression of your authentic self, the complete ownership of your life, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you have become who you truly are. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. This choice is not made once, but renewed every moment of every day. It is the most important choice you will ever make. And it is always available to you, no matter what your past has been or what your present circumstances might be. Your transformation begins now with this recognition, with this choice, with this moment of awakening to your own infinite potential. The person you are capable of becoming is not waiting for perfect conditions or better circumstances. They are waiting for you to choose them right here, right now, in this eternal present moment where all change begins and all healing happens. Choose yourself. Choose growth. Choose consciousness. Choose to become who you truly are. The world is waiting for your authentic contribution, and you are the only one who can give it.